Follow orders. The students are eager. The pests don't stand a chance. Training successful. Duck Academy starts July 27th on DW.
This is DW News live from Berlin. A new prime minister for France. A shake-up at the top after Edouard Philippe tendered his resignation, paving the way for Emmanuel Macron to reshuffle his team and push ahead with plans to reinvent his presidency. Also on the program, a record number of new coronavirus cases in the US, but with mixed messages coming from the Trump administration over marking Independence Day. Will Americans strike the balance between safety and celebration? Plus, in an attempt to boost morale, Indian Prime Minister Modi pays a surprise visit to troops in the region that recently saw a deadly confrontation with China. And the mysterious fate of Botswana's elephants. An investigation is underway into what's killing hundreds of them. I'm Gerhard Elfers. Welcome to the program. It's all change at the top of the French government. The country's new prime minister has just been named as Jean Castex. He was responsible for coordinating France's reopening strategy after its coronavirus lockdown. Earlier, the previous prime minister, Edouard Philippe, handed in his government's resignation to President Emmanuel Macron. Philippe's decision to stand down has paved the way for a reshuffle, which had been widely expected. President Macron had promised to chart a new course for his last 2 years of his term that will focus on efforts to relaunch the French economy. Now let's go straight to Paris and bring in DW correspondent Lisa Lewis. Lisa, what do we know about the new man? Who is Jean Castex?
He's a 55-year-old senior public servant. He's also been re-elected as mayor of a town in southern France recently in the recent municipal elections. And he's been around for quite a while. He's been working as advisor at several ministries in the past. For example, under Nicolas Sarkozy, the former conservative president, he was a deputy secretary general at the Élysée Palace. So he knows his ways around in the public administration. He's also well respected by politicians and public servants. He's known to be a trustworthy person, someone who's hardworking, easy to work with, and as I said, quite well known among politicians, but not much so amongst the French public.
But does Castex's appointment as Prime Minister mark the beginning of a change of policy in France?
Well, not really. If you look at him, he is from the centre-right party Les Républicains. Emmanuel Macron came to power 3 years ago saying that he was running on a platform of centre-left, centre-right policies. So far, he's especially put in place centre-right policies, market-orientated reforms, and that is kind of the continuation of that way of dealing, of presiding over the country. Now, Emmanuel Macron this morning said in an interview with regional newspapers that he wanted to give his presidency fresh impetus. He said he would invest billions of euros in the economy to get the economy back on track. He's also promised other reforms, a healthcare reform, a reform when it comes to youth unemployment. But he also added that he wouldn't completely change course in the last 2 years of his presidency ahead of 2022.
Lisa, the way you sort of described Castex earlier, he seems a bit more like a technocrat, and less well-known, less charismatic. Does that mean that he's also less of a rival for Macron?
Well, absolutely. He's known to be very discreet, as you said earlier. He's also he was the head of the post-COVID strategy here, together with now former Prime Minister Edouard Philippe. And during that time, he didn't give any interview to the press at all. So Emmanuel Macron certainly appointed him as a prime minister, knowing that this person would really stay discreet and give the president more of the limelight, so that Emmanuel Macron can sharpen his profile ahead of 2022. So that he, yes, has a better chance of winning the presidential elections again.
Our correspondent Lisa Lewis in Paris, thank you. And now to some of the other stories making headlines around the world today. A court in Turkey has opened the trial of 20 Saudi nationals for their role in the 2018 killing of dissident journalist Kemal Khashoggi at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. The suspects are being tried in absentia. Officials in Turkey say more than 50 people have been killed in an explosion at a fireworks factory in the northwest of the country. An estimated 150 workers were in the factory at the time. Further explosions have been hampering efforts to bring the fire under control. Ghislaine Maxwell, the former girlfriend of the late financier and convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, has been arrested in the US on sex trafficking charges. Maxwell is accused of recruiting girls to give Epstein massages, during which they were sexually assaulted. Maxwell has previously denied any wrongdoing. Germany's parliament has passed a plan to end the country's reliance on coal by 2038. The package, which was approved by the lower house on Friday, will provide billions of euros to support energy firms in transitioning to renewables and to coal mining regions where jobs will be lost. The US has reported a record number of new coronavirus infections. 55,000 new COVID-19 cases were logged on Thursday, just as the country gears up for the 4th of July Independence Day weekend. Let's look at the data showing daily new cases from the beginning of the outbreak in the US. After rising steadily to begin with, the curve flattens from the end of April to mid-June. But as the lockdown restrictions were eased, new infections have shot up again. Now, as the pandemic accelerates, Independence Day events have been scaled back, and officials are urging caution in both public and private gatherings. DW's Washington bureau chief Ines Pohl visited a popular beach resort to gauge the mood there.
For many Americans, this is the first time out after months in lockdown. They are hungry for fun and sun. They want to celebrate this 4th of July weekend as they normally do.
I'd like to keep moving on, do the fireworks, continue normalcy as much as we can.
Moving back to normalcy is what we'd like to do.
I think if you take the right precautions, there's nothing to be scared of.
They don't want you to party, they don't want you to enjoy yourself, but you'll have, how many thousands in a group on a protest.
How to deal with the pandemic is highly politicized. Some feel that the restrictions are taking away their personal freedom. Others just see an irresponsible lack of action.
I expect here in our community here in Maryland that because it's tourist season now, 4th of July, that these cases are going to come back as people do not socially distance or wear their masks while visiting our beaches. I don't think President Trump will do anything. I think he will continue to, say it's a hoax and not believe in the science that is there, causing so many cases and deaths.
This lack of guidance creates a dilemma for business owners between health concerns and remaining competitive. Brenda Parker runs the Inlet Bar and Grill in the 5th generation.
We want them to wear a mask, but if they don't want to wear a mask, we can't tell them to wear a mask because it's their right to wear a mask or not. I don't feel safe with them not wearing a mask. That's why I wear my mask. But I would rather them wear a mask. He can make it a law that that we have to wear them if it's recommended and it's for our safety and our health. Then he should make it where you get fined $500 if you don't wear a mask.
The United States are facing a new record high of COVID-19 infections, but little would you know here at the boardwalk in Ocean City in Maryland. The majority of the people is not wearing a mask. They tell us we are here to have fun. We want to celebrate. We are done with this virus. The business owners obviously do have a different approach. They fear that after the weekend they will face a new wave which will lead to a new lockdown, and that would bring them to their knees. In 2 weeks' time, we will know whether the right steps were taken, if people celebrated this unprecedented 4th of July in a responsible way, or the worst fears of a next wave will come true.
Let's bring you up to date now with some of the other developments in the coronavirus pandemic. Japan has confirmed over 200 new coronavirus cases, the highest daily increase in 2 months, as fears grow of another wave of infections. China has banned meat imports from various processing plants in several countries in the past month as the pandemic hit the world's top meat processors. And the UK government says that from July 10th, it will lift its quarantine requirements for people arriving in England from countries including France, Spain, Italy and Germany. The European Union has approved the use of remdesivir. That's an antiviral drug that's been found effective in the treatment of COVID-19. The approval comes after a US decision to buy up global stocks of the drug. Now the EU is in talk with the company that produces remdesivir to obtain its own doses. But with stocks now dwindling, it's far from certain just how much it will get.
It's said to ease symptoms and reduce the length of the illness. It might even save lives. Remdesivir was developed to cure Ebola, but is now the biggest hope in the fight against COVID-19. But who gets access to the drug? The US Department of Health and Human Services has bought up 90% of US drug maker Gilead's production over the next few months.
We were not informed by the US government about it, and we learned about it through the media. The Commission is now, as I said a few moments ago, having discussions with Gilead indeed to reserve a sufficient number of doses for the EU member states.
Gilead is one of the most profitable pharmaceutical companies worldwide, with sales reaching $22 billion last year. The EU Commission has now approved remdesivir for the EU. Gilead had promised to deliver as soon as approval is granted, but since the US government bought up most of their product, there is doubt. If words fail and pleading with Gilead doesn't work, we do have the option to give German and other EU drug makers a license to produce the drug even without Gilead's approval.